Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Why of It All. I cannot believe I'm speaking the words. This is episode 18
Mm.
already. It's,
At some point, is there going to be so many episodes that we don't make a big deal out of each one?
I don't know. I think I'm always
That
going
we're
to make
just,
a big deal out of it because it's like, wow.
it's still surreal, isn't it?
Episode 636.
I'm going to be like, can you believe this is episode 636?
Oh, it'll be so cute if we're like grannies and we're still like on episode 3465. Won't that be cute? Okay, that's our goals now.
Yeah.
Um,
Grainy goals.
Yes. Anyway, welcome back, guys. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad you are joining us for today's episode. This is a great episode that I think everybody is going to be able to resonate with. And it's a word that we hear all the time and we talk about all the time. And Melanie and I both had personal experiences with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't even know how we just organically came up with this episode today, this morning.
Yeah,
right?
we were sitting by the pool, like, what are we going to talk about?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, our major show prep for today's episode. But no, we were sitting by the pool this morning having our coffee together, which is one of the things we love to do when we're together.
Staying in this beautiful home.
Yes, we're on location again. And we just started talking about anxiety and the effect that it's had on our lives, the experiences that we've had that we've been through together with anxiety. And should I just dig right into that?
Yeah,
We
let's
talked
start with
about
let's start with this memory that you reminded me of this morning that I'd forgotten all about.
Yeah, and let's just all say we both have bad memories. We both
Yes.
have a very sketchy memory. And so I love it when I'm like, remember, and you're like, no.
I don't.
And vice versa. Like I do the same thing. So somehow something that we were talking about this morning triggered the memory that I had. We were living in Austin together. This was what, mid 2000s, early 2000s,
Early 2000s.
early
Yeah.
2000s. And we were living together in this beautiful 2-bedroom apartment. It was a beautiful
It
apartment,
was.
wasn't
It
it?
was a really nice.
It was a really nice apartment. Melanie moved in because my boyfriend moved out. She
See, I didn't even remember that.
remember?
I didn't remember that at
Oh
all.
my gosh! I ended my engagement, and then you swooped in.
Swooped
You
right
saved
in.
the day. Yes, it was a great. Anyway, that was a great time in our lives. But anyway, so we were something triggered that we talked this morning about an experience that I had. At that time in my life, I was experiencing some very debilitating anxiety.
Was it related to that breakup?
It could have been because it was right around that time. It very well could have been.
Mm-hmm.
God, I didn't even make that connection until just now
Mm-hmm.
because it was right after he left and moved out. So very well could have been. But at this time in my life, it was such a debilitating time for me in dealing with anxiety and panic attacks that my mother had to, do you remember? My
do
mother had
remember
to
that.
come down.
Mm-hmm.
I could not drive. I could barely sleep. I was barely eating. I was able to work, but only because my mother would drive me to and from work. I think, Melanie, you were balls deep in acupuncture school at that
Yes.
time, weren't you?
Yes.
You were heavily studying.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really lean on her a lot of the time because she was in school. I think you were you working?
I was working
You
full
were-
time and going to school.
Yeah.
And taking evening classes. Yeah.
Yes.
I
And
was,
so
I was burning the candle on
at,
both ends.
at times when we were living together at that time, we were kind of strangers in the night at some
A little shift
bit.
in the night.
Shift
Yeah.
in the
yeah.
night, right? Because
Mhm.
anyway, and so my mother came down to care for me. She literally had to take a week off of work to come and care for me because I could not drive. I was so paralyzed with panic and anxiety. And so anyway, she came down and she was caring for me for the most part, but I think there was a time that she left. I guess she had been there for a week, or can't remember the whole timeline, but it was just me and Melanie at the house, and I could feel a panic attack coming on. And I guess I came to you and I was like, Melanie, I'm having a panic attack. Help. Like, I don't remember how I said it, but we had this conversation this morning about how I think up to this point in your life, you'd never really dealt with panic attacks or anxiety much, right? You didn't have a lot of experience.
No, I
with
really didn't have
caring.
any reference points except that whatever it was that you were experiencing you weren't just intensely upset. it was affecting you physically. Like you
Big
were
time.
having tangible, visceral,
Yes.
physical experience of anxiety that I
Mhm.
remember you calling 911
I did.
maybe more than once.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I
Like
called because I
it was completely it would put you in a state where you were completely non-functional.
was
Like you
debilitating.
that's the perfect word.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
like it was debilitating. And if you've ever had a panic attack, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is debilitating. It is very scary. You feel like you're dying, um, which is why you call 911 or the ER. Yeah, I did. And so, anyway, I remember starting to have a panic attack and me going to Melanie and being like, Melanie, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. And she's like, you know what? Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk. Put on your shoes. We're getting out of the house. And I just remember and all we did was walk around the parking lot of our little apartment complex. I
Mhm.
say little, it was a big apartment complex. But we just I put my shoes on. I did what she said. It was like in the evening, you know, I can't remember, before dusk, I think. And she goes, "Get your shoes on. We're going to go for a walk." And we just started walking. And what I remember about it is that you weren't focusing on the panic attack. You were focusing on just asking, like just talking, just like normal friends. Just like basically, you were just, I don't know if you were intentionally trying to get my mind off of the panic attack, but whatever you did, it worked because I was able to focus then on our conversations. I
Mhm.
was able to focus on, maybe you asked, well, what did you do today? Or maybe you were telling me about your day in school or about, you know, what you were learning. But it was enough for me to get my mind off of my problems for that moment, get my mind off of the fear that I was experiencing and focus it on us and on our
Mhm.
talk and on our walk. And we dug in a little bit more, and you were like, I don't know if it was me or you, but I was like, the best thing you did for me in that moment was hold space for
Yeah.
me. It was literally just your presence. It was literally just you being there, not saying, you're okay, or we're going to fix this, or you shouldn't be anxious, you know. And no, it was just you holding space for me at that time. And that was just going back to healing journeys, that was a
Yeah.
huge part of me healing. You know, that was a pivotal moment in me realizing that I could get my mind off of the panic attack as it was happening. Because I
Mhm.
didn't realize that I could like escape it or like try to like change what I was doing and focus on other things. Because when you're in it, it's so scary.
Yeah.
It feels like you're dying. It really does. It feels like you're having a heart attack. So kind of that's how we kind of started with our conversation for this anxiety. And now that we're however many years since that time that we lived together, we've both dealt with anxiety
Mhm.
in our life, you know. And then you had an experience with anxiety. I don't know if it was last year or the year
It
before.
was more recent.
Yeah. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about that or discuss like your experience with, I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack.
No,
You've never, have you ever really had a panic
I
attack?
don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever had it where it affected me. Actually, okay.
Mm.
So
And now that you remember it.
I'm laughing because sometimes I have the best ahas just when we're having these conversations. So
That's great.
it never occurred to me that I was experiencing anxiety.
Mhm.
And I say it that way on purpose because I'm not interested in claiming the anxiety. I don't want to claim it as a thing that I have. It's something that I have experienced.
I like that.
Um, and it's something that I never acknowledged or was aware that it's what I was experiencing until the last couple of years, like 2023, 2024, when it got so intense that it became obvious. But in hindsight,
Mm-hmm.
I probably was experiencing anxiety for most of my life, all the way into my childhood.
And you think
And it
that,
was, and again, in hindsight, in my childhood, it would have been obvious to any observer, but I was a kid. So, like, you know, you're not recognizing things for what they are
mm-hmm.
when you're a child.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a young adult into my 20s and 30s, I was so high functioning
Mm-hmm.
that the anxiety that I think if I'm being real honest with myself, was always there, but I channeled it into productivity. I channeled it into productivity. I channeled it into perfectionism.
Mm.
I channeled it into control and hypervigilance. And to the observer, it was just, damn, that girl gets shit done. And to me, I was like, damn, I get shit done. And it always turns out the way I want it to be. And I've never half-assed anything in my life. And these were all like points of pride for me. But what was happening was I was running my nervous system ragged. I never took my foot off the gas. Probably because if I slowed down long enough, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing if I slowed down long enough and I chilled out long enough, it probably would have begun to show up emotionally.
Yeah.
But I just never gave it a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm understanding in hindsight, as I have learned in the last, 6 months, I've really begun to understand nervous system dysregulation, which we've talked about on this show many times, is that you keep your foot on the gas pedal for years and years and years and years, and in my case, decades, your system is eventually going to freaking collapse. Eventually, you're going to start breaking down. And that's exactly what happened. I ran my nervous system absolutely ragged. In hindsight, I was operating in a sympathetic overdrive fight or flight state for decades. And it got to the point where it began manifesting as chronic pain. It's like I was always in a state of tension. And because my nervous system couldn't down-regulate into that rest and heal state, years and years of tissues, cells, all the different aspects of your physical body that should have been getting an opportunity to be in a repair and heal state.
To a chill state.
Right? They never got that opportunity. So eventually all that damage builds up and the tension builds up. And I ended up, in a decade of chronic pain that got progressively worse until 2023, 2024, when it was so debilitating. Well, then I can't freaking do anything. Then I couldn't, not only could I not, just operate and move freely and normally and comfortably through my life because of the pain, but I couldn't even do the things that I had been doing for years before as the things that bring me joy.
I know.
And the things that were fulfilling and my sort of the things that I would use to fill my cup.
Yeah.
Hiking, gardening, things like that. The things that were like my moving meditations that helped me release to whatever degree I could and helped me focus my mind and quiet my mind. I was in so much pain I couldn't do those anymore. And so 2023 and 24, it finally built up to the point where I was experiencing the emotional side of anxiety for the first time in my life. And I was like, damn, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like all these people in my life that had been struggling with anxiety, that they were experiencing the emotional type of anxiety.
Like me.
You, other people
Mental.
that I know, that I used to freaking think, God, I got my own stuff, but at least I don't have that.
Not funny.
And it finally hit me on that level, and I realized, like, wow, this can't continue. I can't just keep pushing myself like this. I can't just, I gotta hit the brakes.
I think we had different experiences with anxiety because mine was in shorter spurts and in more intensity. And when I'm thinking about yours was a longer draw.
It's a slow build
It
up.
was a slow build. Mine was just like, I was literally, when I had another bout with anxiety back in 2016, I had ended a relationship with a gentleman that had really actually scared me on like I say physical level, but like anyway, it was a very scary kind of ending to the relationship. He didn't take the breakup very well, and so I remember like sitting at a restaurant with my sister and my mom and having a full-blown panic attack in the restaurant. Like I had to walk out. My mom had to follow me outside in the front. Thought I was going to throw up. I thought I was going to pass out. Like
I don't think you ever told me this story
Yeah,
either.
no, this was in 2016, years after Melanie, I'd already moved back. Lived in a different town now and whatever, but like yeah, it's like our anxiety manifested in different ways.
Mhm.
And that bout, that was a good few, like a good week or two of just, I drove myself to the emergency room like 3 times that week. My mom up at 2 a.m. with me, pacing the living room, pacing the room, begging her to come with me to the ER. They would check my heart out. They would hook me up to the EKGs, and they're like, "You're fine. Your heart is fine. You're just having a panic attack." And again, you can have somebody logically telling you that, but for some reason, when you're in that fight or flight, when your body is so revved up like that, it's like logic is out the door. You
Yeah.
cannot reason with somebody. And so, people that have never been through it, people that have never experienced a panic attack or anxiety attack, because like my mom at the time and my dad, when my dad was alive, like I remember like the third night in a row, I wanted to go to the ER, and I was like, "Mom, please go with me." And my dad got up out of a dead sleep, and he's like, "You are not going to the emergency room. Your mother is not going." No, he put his foot down finally, because I'd done it like 2 or 3 nights in a row, and I ended up driving myself. I was that scared. I was
Mm.
that terrified. He would not let my mom go. He is like, "No, you don't need to go, but your mom is definitely not going with you. It is 2 a.m. in the morning. You need to go sit down or go whatever." And I remember still going that night by myself. That's how debilitating, I guess, it can be. And so anyway, just that experience in 20, that was the last bout, thank God, knock on wood, that I have had with those debilitating panic attacks. You know, after that, I got into yoga. I
I
got
was
into
just gonna ask. Okay, so it sounds like
so
it sounds like something shifted after that.
something shifted, but I do have to also admit that I did have to get on pharmaceuticals for a little while. Like I did have to go to the doctor, and I did have to get on a anti-anxiety medication because you know, there's such a stigma around like mental illness and like anxiety and depression. People put such a stigma on it, and there is a time and a place for, I know for me in my experience with needing a little extra pharmaceutical help, because at
Mm.
that time I don't know if I could have crawled out of that space without getting on a medication for a period of time to get and it's because your body is lacking those chemicals. Like my body was not creating enough serotonin at the time. My body was not creating enough of those chemicals that could help me balance myself. I was unable to do that for myself. And so getting on pharmaceuticals helped for a while. And then yoga became a part of my life, meditation became a part of my life. And it's like I intuitively knew at that time when to wean myself off of that medication.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to do that safely. And it wasn't until 2019, 2018 that I got, after a couple of years of having that scary experience, um, feeling like I'd really conquered that
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and those panic attacks for good. I'm gonna speak that into existence, and I'm never gonna have those experiences again.
Well, I think a big, I think the most important thing that I'm taking from what you're saying there is
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't just lean on the pharmaceuticals indefinitely as a crutch to make you stop feeling the bad feelings.
No.
You you did whatever it was that you could do, use the
Mm-hmm.
tools that you learned about at that time in your life, yoga and meditation,
Yeah.
to begin the process of that self-care, to begin
Mm-hmm.
using techniques to calm your nervous system
Mm-hmm.
organically.
Yes.
And I don't know about the neurochemistry aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
um, but my guess is that, or what I do know in terms of neuroplasticity is that, of course, any time where we are using those techniques,
Mm-hmm.
meditation, yoga, journaling, writing, walking,
Mm-hmm.
um, painting, singing, I mean, whatever, pick your tool. There's a bazillion others, but anything that we can do to facilitate our brain, our nervous system to downregulate into that parasympathetic rest and heal mode. Every single time you do that, you're contributing to giving your brain and your nervous system the message that in this moment we are safe. Again and again and again. And if I had to guess, I would say it was doing those things that helped your body get to the point where it could start producing whatever hormones and chemistry it needed to produce to help prevent those completely debilitating episodes.
And that's what happened.
Yeah,
That's what happened. I bet one thing that came to mind when you were saying that is that I think we both have this really amazing ability and to be our own advocates, to not just lay down and take it, meaning
or give up.
That, I guess that's what I was thinking.
Or rely on a crutch.
Exactly. Like I think we're both really good at searching and like not just laying down and taking it. Like a lot of people would just, you know what I mean? Just like lay down, okay, well, this is my life and this is what's going to be. And
or they just take the pills and pretend that they don't have problems anymore.
Exactly. Right. And so, I think that, yes, I think in our society, like it's it's easier to just take the pills and to just lay down and just numb out or whatever. And so I guess I'm proud of us for always, searching, always hunting, always progressing, always trying to find the answers. I guess find the why of it all. Find the reasons that I don't know how else to say it other than just being our own best advocates, advocating for ourselves. Like I think about you on this debilitating physical journey that you've been on for the last however many years, 10 years. A decade of on and off pain and debility. You couldn't play with your kid at points. You couldn't laugh. You couldn't find the joy in your life because you were so debilitated by this pain. That's how those traumas manifested with you. But like ever since you were on that journey, you have made it your mission to go see the functional medicine doctor, go do the work, go be your own advocate. You keep searching. You're not, you know what I'm saying? Like you're progressive. You keep trying to find those answers for yourself. And I think that's such a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
At the Why of It All, we are passionate about healing mind, spirit, and body. And that's why we're proud to be sponsored by a brand whose passion for wellness runs as deep as ours, Epic Minerals. Epic Minerals is a family-owned American small business that offers premium, mineral-based wellness products thoughtfully formulated with therapeutic-grade ingredients designed to support detoxification, mineral replenishment, and boost vitality from the inside out. Their product line includes Zeolite Extra, a heavy metal detox spray with humic and fulvic acids, Wellness Extra capsules, a daily immune support with 72 essential trace minerals to boost energy and optimize cellular function, and Colloidal Silver Extra, a powerful natural antimicrobial spray to protect against harmful pathogens and boost immunity. And remember, when you shop small, every purchase supports a dream and makes a real difference in the lives of a real family. Head to epicminerals.net and use our exclusive code HEAL, that's HEAL, at checkout for 10% off your order.
You know, I truly believe that wellness as my default state of being is absolutely possible for me.
Yeah.
I will never not believe that. I believe wellness in terms of my physical body, wellness in terms of my mental, emotional well-being, wellness in terms of abundance and prosperity, wellness in terms of being in alignment with passion and purpose, joy. I truly believe that having wellness in all aspects of my life as my default state of being is the real truth. And that what I'm really essentially doing is I'm peeling off the false layers of shit that's been piled up on top of that base truth. And I'm not interested in not getting to that. I feel like that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
For me, is to achieve such a profound state of wellness for myself, and having all of these experiences of not wellness is serving me, because it's giving me the reference points. It's giving, first of all, it's giving me, as we talked about in the last episode, it's providing for me the opportunities to heal within me what needs to be seen and acknowledged and liberated. It's giving me those opportunities so I can get it done, do the work, and get to the wellness, which I'm at this point more than not.
Yeah.
But also because part of my purpose, I think, and what I'm passionate about and have been for decades, is to be a facilitator for healing for others. And if not for this life experience that I've had, I wouldn't have the reference points for it.
Yeah.
So Gina and I, again, we will reiterate here, we are not claiming to have it all figured out yet. We are not claiming to be the experts. We are still moving through our life experience and accessing those reference points. But I'm not ever going to give up getting there, because I think that that's why I'm here, is to discover that path in whatever way ends up being the one that works for me, so that I can give back to humanity what I've discovered.
Yeah. And you think about it, think about your career as an acupuncturist. In that season of your life, you were a healer, and just in using different modalities.
Exactly.
Right? Now you've blossomed in this healer with your voice. Right? So I think that's such a beautiful, like, in the different seasons of your life, how you've been a facilitator or a healer in these different ways.
Yeah.
When you were talking earlier, I was thinking about the word disease. Disease. And so when you break down the word disease, right?
Yeah.
Dis-ease. It's the body not being at ease. And so we've already talked about how that can manifest in so many facets of your life, right? When the body is not at ease.
The body, but also emotionally and mentally too. It's
And I think sometimes, like, I really truly, like, I hear about all of these horror stories with like, you know, like women or men that have IBS or celiac disease or all of these like autoimmune diseases. And I honestly, like, I sometimes when I hear about these stories that are just so unfortunate, and I just, like, I feel for those people that are going through those hard physical ailments and diseases in their life. And I'm just like, how did I get this far and not have my body go into this complete shutdown mode? Like, every day, or not every day, but like a lot of times I'm like, I'm so grateful that my body has been strong enough
Thank you, body.
Yes, to get me through.
Yeah.
I mean, the panic attacks were tough and they were debilitating, they were hard, but like, I think about people that have these chronic diseases, and I'm just like, praise God, like, thank you, God, that you have kept my body, and you've helped me keep my body as healthy as it is. You know what I mean? Because what a gift it is to just be able to get up every day and go to work and care for my child and be there for my friends and be able to do all the things that if I was in a chronic state of disease or illness physically, that would really, that would just really tear me up.
This is making me think of?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay?
Yes. I haven't read, do you have the book?
I have the book, yeah.
Have you read it?
Long time ago. It was actually You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay was one of the very first books that I read decades ago that turned the trajectory of my life in the direction of wanting to be a healer.
I think I need to borrow that book from you.
You can borrow it anytime.
I've heard so many good stories about it.
So, again, it's been a really long time since I read it, so I'm not going to be able to come up with specific examples, but essentially the premise is that maybe I can't say all, but let's say very, 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 very many
Mhm.
physical manifestations of disease are still rooted in emotional
Oh,
wounds.
absolutely.
And it's the emotional stuff that eventually solidifies into the manifestation of
Mhm.
physical disease. Um,
The traumas.
I apologize, Louise Hay, if I am misquoting you in any way, but I feel like one of the examples that's coming up is the memory of cancer being unresolved anger in many cases.
Mhm.
Maybe not all cancers, but things
Mhm.
like that.
Oh yeah.
So it, it's, I think even the people who, I think that these conversations that we have,
Mhm.
and in the last episode talking about how so very many people out there are in a state of avoidance,
Yeah.
doing everything they can to avoid healing the traumas, avoid addressing the wounds head on
Mhm.
in order to fully process and heal them for real once and for all.
Mhm.
So many people out there are content to just avoid, to just medicate their feelings away,
Mhm.
or using different, just thank you, I was looking for that word, different distraction methods, or just I'm just not going to think about it anymore, or things like that, stuffing the feelings deep inside to never have to look at them ever again.
Yeah.
It's my belief it's going to come up eventually.
Oh,
It's going to come if you don't actually face it and release it, it's going to catch up with you eventually.
It will.
And I can't necessarily state that as a known proven fact, but I've seen a lot in my life, and I've witnessed in my own life how not recognizing the old wounds from the past, not recognizing how I was stuffing the emotions down into my physical body, turning it in, and it was turning into nervous system dysregulation that just eventually, because of not being processed and not being healed, eventually translated into a decade of debilitating pain. And all of the treatments, all of the modalities, all of the body work, all of the tools and physical methods outside of myself that I used to relieve that pain and relax my body failed again and again and again. I was even diagnosed with, you guys might remember, with Lyme disease in 2022, I think.
Oh, 22. Okay.
I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And at the time, we touched on this, I think in the kitchen yesterday or today, I can't remember. At the time, it was today at the coffee shop. At the time, the diagnosis of Lyme disease for me provided great relief. Because prior to that, it was nothing but confusion. Nothing made sense at all whatsoever. I ate a pristine diet. I was very, very active. I took great care of myself. All of the other tests, blood work and all of my levels and my hormones and everything that I would do to go get all these different things analyzed, everybody would come back and say, you are literally the picture of health. It's amazing. You're so healthy. Nothing made sense. There was assumptions at one point of fibromyalgia and all these different things. And all of the stuff that we did for that, nothing ever helped. And so I was in a state of overwhelming confusion and frustration. Well, when you're in confusion and frustration and somebody finally runs the test and finally diagnoses you with, in my case, it was Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr, and a half a dozen other pathogens that somehow got missed in all of these other tests. Just having the diagnosis alone at that moment in time provided great relief because the confusion and the frustration subsided. But then came 2 more years of treating the Lyme disease and the pathogens. No relief at all whatsoever. Multiple functional medicine doctors these were excellent. These are not typical conventional medicine doctors that have a limited range of, these are phenomenal whole body health, incredibly brilliant specialists who were really, really good at what they do. And I had a lot of faith in them, and everything they did failed in my case. It wasn't until I started addressing the traumas of the past. It wasn't until I started
Mm-hmm.
doing the work to calm my nervous system
Mm-hmm.
and the ways that the anxiety was manifesting
Mhm.
for me, not just addressing the nervous system itself, but also going back in and looking for all the beliefs, the limitation programs, the traumas of the past, and healing the wounds,
Mm-hmm.
that I started feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
If it was really the Lyme disease, the diagnosis, the treatment of that would have helped.
Mm-hmm.
But it was going inward, finally at long last, and facing everything.
Yeah.
That is what finally helped.
Yeah. And I don't know. And again, I do not know 100% if anxiety runs in the familial lines, but I've got two siblings, and maybe the third one too. I've got three other siblings, but I think we and my mother have all dealt with anxiety at one point in their lives. And I, a couple of my siblings are still on pharmaceuticals too. And they're like, I may be on this for the rest of my life, and that's okay. Like if that's what you need to function and to feel good, then that absolutely.
We're not judging anybody for
No.
the choices that you make.
No, like I had to be on medication for a time, a season in my life to get through my debilitating anxiety. So I know how important it can be. It wasn't until I started doing the inner work and learning about other tools that I had in my toolbox. But one thing that came up was that, we both have children, and it would just kill me if I ever started seeing that my son was exhibiting symptoms of anxiety and panic attacks. But I wonder if he's already predisposed to that because, it kind of runs on his dad's side of the family too. And again, I don't know what the statistic is of millions of people worldwide that deal with anxiety. I mean, it's its own animal,
Well,
in our
unfortunately,
world.
the world that we live in right now, for many, many reasons, is sort of a breeding ground for that sort of thing. We are
Absolutely.
overstimulated. There are generations of people out there who haven't processed through the feelings of the past. We've got toxins in our food. The food itself is nutritionally bankrupt. Is a poor soil quality in the farmland. So the food that we're eating is not providing our body. Even if you're eating a pristine diet in terms of eating the right things and none of the wrong things, the food doesn't contain the same nutrition that it used to. And so our bodies in many cases don't have the core building blocks for maintaining proper hormone levels and neurochemistry and all these different things. We're running around on a half or sometimes full empty tank in some people's case.
And we're also taught too in our society too about that working hard and working until you die is the barometer to whether you're living a successful life. And I think we forget, I'm a yoga teacher, and so I teach the type of yoga that is more works on the parasympathetic nervous system, restorative and nidra and all these modalities. And we're just taught as a society that if we're not working 15 hours a day and not stopping to rest, and that's just the society we live in. And so I wish that there was a shift in realizing that everybody needs rest. And I think that a lot of people look at it as a weakness. I think that a lot of people can't stop long enough to recognize that their bodies need rest. They need to slow down. And I think sometimes it's frowned upon in our society.
Well, and oftentimes too, there's so many people who can't. It's again talking about the way that our Western culture is set up, and also financial constraints, and the necessity in many cases of having a 2-income household. Just to be able to get by. I mean, the stress factors are so much more intense now than they ever have been, which is why I believe it is so important for people not to go into a state of avoidance of processing through stuff. Because if you don't, all of the factors are working against us, and that shit is going to build up to the point where it manifests as either mental emotional disorder, as we are seeing, as the statistical numbers of mental emotional disorders in people, especially in America and the Western culture, are higher than they ever have been. It's astronomical. Which is why we have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to clear this stuff out. And that's going to look different for different people, I suppose. And again, we're not the experts here. We're just talking it out.
Yeah.
But again, why, coming back to you recognizing us, you and I, being willing to have these conversations, be willing to be working on ourselves and not going into avoidance.
Yeah.
Being determined to do whatever it takes to balance ourselves out, balance our lives out, and prioritize our own well-being. Talking about kids, prioritizing our own well-being for the sake of our children. You brought up about anxiety being a genetic thing. Maybe.
Possibly.
But also, patterns of behavior can be passed down through family lines to where it appears to be a generational thing, but it isn't DNA. It's patterns of behavior that are passed down.
Sure.
It is you are learning patterns of thought, patterns of reactivity.
Behavior.
Yeah. So I don't know how much of that is genetic and how much of it is simply patterns of behavior that are passed down. World according to Melanie, I think it's more the latter than anything else. But also, of course, there are, like we said, environmental, nutritional, and societal and cultural contributing factors to the whole thing. It's we live in an interesting world. But I'll say this. I am so appreciative of having you in my life, and that we can sit here and have these conversations and chew on it and think it through.
Work it out.
Yeah.
And I just think for anybody listening today that struggles with anxiety, anybody listening that struggles with, whether it just be generalized anxiety or panic attacks, I just encourage you to lean on somebody and lean on doctors, lean on pharmaceuticals if that's what you need. Do what works for you. It's not a one size fits all, it's just not. We're all different. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different experiences with anxiety. And so, but I think not stopping and making yourself a priority and wanting to get to the root of it, I think, if you are working on that, then I think you're ahead of the curve. And just, leaning on your support system, and hopefully you have one.
Others have healed, and so can you.
Yeah.
Just knowing that there is absolutely every possibility that you can move on beyond this stage of your life. Again, Gina and I are still in our process right now, but I can speak for myself. I've experienced extraordinary healing in that department in terms of my emotional state and the way that anxiety was affecting my physical body. Extraordinary progress, extraordinary healing in an incredibly short period of time. And it was through, I believe, ultimately, through the willingness to not avoid it, but to look at it head on and do whatever it takes to get clear from it. In my case, I didn't choose the pharmaceuticals. I have an intense aversion to pharmaceuticals. But I'll lean on plant medicine. I'll do that. But people have to be, you have to do what you need to do to take those baby steps. And there's no judgment about it. Do what you feel you need to do that's right for you. But I would encourage people to not just get to where you're not feeling the feelings anymore and stop there.
And I'm going to speak for myself and just saying just this. recording this podcast since we started has been super healing for me and super helpful for me. Just going through this with my best friend and creating what we've created. And we don't have it. We're still, we're amateurs. But you just put one foot in front of the other and we problem solve and we get through it and we evolve. And, I'm just so proud of us. And
yeah. You know what something you said earlier today, I think we were at the coffee shop, and that I'm being reminded of right now is you had made a comment about how some of the things in your life that caused that triggered the anxiety within you, that you were recognizing it's from those experiences that you developed more courage than you've ever had.
absolutely.
And in this case, like with us taking the steps to do this podcast, like I'm gonna celebrate the win right now that it's not been easy. It's been a heck of a lot of work, and there have been moments where lots of stuff was getting stirred up about it, but being willing to step into that energy and not give up and keep moving forward. I feel like I've stepped into more courage.
Yeah.
I've stepped into the courage to use my voice in a way that I was terrified for before. Like literally one of the greatest fears of mine was the fear of speaking up because I might be misjudged, or I might be misunderstood, or I might be just straight up judged for what I had to say. So much so that the physical experience of that anxiety felt like someone had their hand around my throat. And my throat, my larynx, my voice would get so tight, I couldn't push the sound out. And I would think, am I getting laryngitis, or like what's going on here? It was literally the actual physical tissues of my body would get so tight that I couldn't speak. And in working through those fears and releasing the fear to speak up and choosing every week with this show to step forward and use my voice, and that tension here released. With each time each step that I take to push through the fear, you said it, the only way out is through. And not surrendering to it, but pushing through it. Has allowed literal physical tension around my voice to release.
I love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing. Yeah.
We hope that this episode has been encouraging for you guys. We know anxiety is a heavy topic. And this one for us, this subject came up organically for us today, and we thought, let's just go with it and see where it goes. And our hope is that this has been encouraging for you, inspiring. Maybe it's given you some things to think about and chew on. And certainly to recognize that if this is something that you have been dealing with, that you are not alone. Certainly not these days in the world that we all live in now. You are absolutely not alone. So we love you guys. We hope you've gotten a lot out of this. If you have, it would mean a lot to us if you would hit that positive affirmation button down at the bottom. Give us a like, follow, subscribe, share with your friends or somebody that you think maybe this episode would resonate with, that could be supportive for them. That is the best way to support us, and a wonderful way to support the people that you care about.
Yeah. And we want to hear about your anxiety stories or your anxiety journey. And if you're, if you want to share, please leave a comment. And, we would love to engage.
Ahas that you've had, things that have made a big difference for you, awarenesses that have come to your attention that have helped you process through it. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you on the next episode of The Why of It All.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.